Damn it. Okay, we get it. Sit down. All right, we get it. You killed the midget.
William Mauser directs Serial Rabbit 1, and this is a 2025 low-budget slasher movie with the bunny theme. Now this is actually a remaster of a 2005 movie called Serial Rabbit. It has a few new scenes added, a little bit of updated kind of CGI VFX and a little bit of a remaster, but it's essentially the same movie, just a little bit expanded upon. So what's the story? There apparently has been a whole bunch of these kind of Serial Rabbit movies, so this is where to start, I guess. And obviously it focuses on a serial killer dressed in a kind of Easter bunny costume. And he's going around seemingly initially targeting criminals. But as the film goes on, he ends up just killing anyone. And the movie doesn't really have a main protagonist as such. It features a few sort of, a few of his victims and a little bit of kind of a backstory, some of which are police, some of which are criminals. One of which is a kind of a survivor of like a office shooting and things. But never really a central character, really. And the movie culminates in this rave where this killer bunny decides to go and, well, make his mark. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss. Now, this is a very, very low micro-budget movie. According to IMDb, and I don't know if this is to be believed, the budget was less than $200. So bear that in mind. And it is, for the most part, a 2005 movie. The more modern bits are, we have a police interview with our serial rabbit, and they are kind of interviewing, and then they're kind of flashing back, and this is where we see the kind of the older footage, although that has had a little bit of work done in regards to some like CGI blood and things. Anyway. What works? Obviously this is a low budget comedy sort of serial killer slasher movie. So, you know, obviously tongue is in cheek there, and it's obviously a silly premise, and it's having fun with it. So there is a sort of a sense of humour with this movie, but there are characters in the movie that kind of take the situation sort of seriously. So you could kind of laugh at the absurdity of it all. And there's a reasonable high body count in this film. Our killer rabbit uses a kind of knuckle duster with kind of claw extensions on it, and because he's dressed as a bunny, I guess, people are sort of at odds what to do, and they're kind of just looking at this sort of character in a bunny costume, and their guard is down, and this is how he's able to kind of, you know, get up close and kill people. But there's a high body count. It's mostly kind of slashes, but there are a few instances where he's going to be ripping out the heart and stuff. As I say, the gore is minimal here. There's a couple of instances where they've clearly used like real like offal and stuff, but they've added in a little bit of kind of computer splash of CGI blood and stuff. But it's not a particularly sort of gory film. But it is obviously something which is a little bit silly and you can kind of laugh at. But I've got to say, for the budget, for the purported budget, I'm not sure I believe that, because this, in its credit, looks a lot bigger budget than $200, I have to say. I'm not saying this looks like a high production value, but it looks more expensive than $200. Why do I say that? I mean, I think there's a reasonable variety in kind of shots and things like this. There's quite a few different sort of extras, and some of the acting even wasn't too bad. I mean, I'm not saying this is great acting, but it's not like that horrible car crash acting. And it's obviously a comedic movie, so people aren't necessarily taking their roles deadly seriously. But it was passable, you know. It was kind of very much in line with a lot of low-budget horror movies that we've reviewed before here on this channel. And the kind of the premise of this kind of killer bunny rabbit, even though we've seen sort of stuff like this before, you know, is quite a fun one. And they do even try and have a little bit of a twist towards the end. You know, so it looks better than a $200 movie. Like I say, I'm not sure I necessarily believe that. I would have said this is probably, not that it makes a huge difference, but you know, in my estimation, if I had to guess the budget of this, I'd probably say a few $1,000s. You know, I don't know if that makes it any better for you. But it's a relatively kind of fun movie. It's interesting that it doesn't have a protagonist, really. I mean, there's a downside to that, but it makes it, again, it really, our main character here is the kind of the bunny rabbit. And he doesn't really talk, although we do get a little bit of kind of backstory with him. So, you know, I've seen worse. Let me just put it like that. It's obviously meant to be a knowingly schlocky and silly and, you know, bad cinema and stuff. But, you know, it wasn't completely unwatchable. Let me just say that. What doesn't work, I think the lack of a protagonist makes you not particularly invested in the story. I actually had to watch this in 2 sittings because the story isn't particularly gripping. Our bunny character doesn't speak. So, you know, he's not the most enthralling of characters. I mean, it's a fun visual, but, you know, there's not really a lot to grip onto in regards to an interesting narrative. And we spend a little bit of time with people who end up being victims, but they just kind of, it seems sort of somewhat pointless because we have a variety of different, as I say, small segments where we'll follow a variety of denizens of this area, and I have to say, it will make you despair of humanity. Some of the kind of I mean, deliberately so, this movie is trying to do this, but some of the kind of the criminal element that it depicts here have just got like no humanity. For instance, there's one character, one of these criminals, where he's obviously famous for something, and someone wants to get his autograph, and this criminal just shoots him and then sort of kicks his body and stuff. So it's like, you know, even someone who puts you on a pedestal, you're still just going to kind of kill him. So yeah, it's a pretty like dark movie in places, which is at odds with the kind of the silly sort of premise. So, you know, it really does highlight the real scum of humanity, I have to say. But yeah, the lack of protagonist, I think is to its detriment, because we never really get any established characters, and we never really follow anyone, and as such, the actual kind of story itself is a little dull. It's maybe a little longer than it should be. I mean, a premise like this, I think, should be quite snappy. I think it maybe goes on for just a little bit of a long. It's not a long film really, but it just, I think, this could have been like an hour long, you know, and it could have been a little bit more punchy, really. Obviously you'll see a big difference in quality compared to the kind of the film shot in 2025 compared to the film shot in 2004, according to this, and then released in 2005, because the 2005 footage is very sort of grainy and low quality compared to the more modern footage and stuff like that. It's kind of like a one-joke film, and as I say, I think the joke is kind of funny and amusing, but it doesn't really do much else with that premise, and that's, again, it's kind of goes into that sort of that running time. So if you just want a bizarre, low-budget sort of slasher film, it's not maybe as bad as you would think, but I would say it's not exactly high art at the same time. You know, you may want to check it out. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. It's not actually as bad as I was expecting, and even sort of kept me relatively entertained. So 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.